is interaction of radiation and matter. This is chapter 5 from the textbook. Okay, so let me start with very basic things, some quantum concept here. So light, quantum mechanically, the unit of light is a photon. Okay, that is photon, right? So what is a photon? Is a quantum or in a packet of amount of energy, okay, of radiation, right? So how much is that is given by this formula, and I have written a Greek letter here, this, which is nothing called nu, right? If you find difficulty in writing that, just write F for frequency, okay? So there are some quantum mechanical concept like wave particle duality. What does that mean? Light behaves like a particle as well as a wave. When we consider light as a wave, that is a classical physics. But when we consider light as a particle, that is a quantum physics, okay? And in this formula, that is the amount of energy due to one photon, E is equal to h nu. The quantity h is a very, very small number called Planck constant, okay? And nu is the frequency of radiation. For example, if you consider blue light, plug the frequency of blue light there in that formula, multiply by Planck constant, then you will get the energy carried by one blue photon, right? And we have what we call the wave equation. Velocity is equal to frequency. Let's write F, or you can write nu, right? They are same thing, nu and F, right? Only the difference in later, right? Times wavelength. So if you consider light, the velocity of light in vacuum is denoted by letter C, right? The frequency is F, you can write F, but since I am consistently using nu, I can write nu times lambda. So this is what is called wave equation. So if you know frequency of radiation, you can calculate wavelength by using that formula. By the way, we use energy unit electron volt, and 1 electron volt is the energy carried by an electron when it accelerates through the potential difference of 1 volt. And that is given by this number. And the Planck constant can also be expressed in terms of electron volt second, like this, right? Okay. For example, if you consider photons in visible range, which has 7 colors, you know, V, I, B, G, Y, O, R, right? So the energy varies between these 2 electron volts, 1.8 electron volt to 3.1 electron volt. You can convert that into joules by multiplying by 1.6 times 10 to the power minus 19, okay? So here you can see the electromagnetic spectrum. So this is the visible range. If you go that way, you get longer wavelengths, electromagnetic waves, right? And if you go this way, we'll get the shorter wavelength, means more energetic. Longer wavelength photons, less energetic, because wavelength high means frequency low. So energy is equal to S times frequency. So that will be less. Okay. So let's consider atomic structure, right? So there are some deficiencies, some weaknesses of Bohr model, but this works pretty well. So what the simplest Bohr model is like this. Let me show you this picture. I'll be scrolling up and down to show these pictures and formulas, right? So there is a heavy nucleus with proton, right, with positive charge, right? Proton and neutron, no charge in the nucleus. And then electrons are orbiting in fixed orbits, which is not exactly what quantum mechanics says, right? According to quantum mechanics, electrons are not in the definite orbit, right? Definite orbit, but they form cloud, right? So in Bohr, this is a very simple model given by Bohr, right? And these n equal to 1, n equal to 2, n equal to 3, and so on are called the orbits or energy levels, okay? And the potential energy, if you remember physics 2, electricity and magnetism, you remember that the potential energy is given by this. And the negative sign is because one charge is positive due to nucleus and other charge is negative due to electron, right? So here Z is what is called the atomic number, right? So that is actually number of proton in the nucleus, and E is the electronic charge. So nucleus has charge of G times E, electron has charge minus E. If you multiply and then plug K is equal to 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught, you get this as the potential energy, right? That is the potential energy. And but you know that since the electrons are orbiting in circular path, right, the force, Coulomb force, which is K Q1 Q2 over R square, provides the centripetal acceleration ma, but A is what? That A is V square over R, right? And K is 1 over 4 pi epsilon naught. Q1 and Q2 over R square gives this Z square over R square, right? So that is from Coulomb's law. So once you simplify from here V square, you multiply, cross multiply and simplify and find V square and plug in kinetic energy formula, then you will get this kinetic energy. We have already gotten potential energy. So once you add the kinetic and potential energy, you will get the total energy of an electron in an orbit, okay? And the total energy is negative. Now you are comfortable. See, all these informations are linked together. So we already know that. What is the meaning of negative energy? That is the bound system, right? That is the bound system. So electron is bound to the nucleus, okay? Now, what Niels Bohr gave very boldly, that the angular momentum of an electron in the orbit is, which is, you know that, by the way, angular momentum is given by R cross P, right? R is R, P is mv. We have seen that in chapter 3, right? So once you simplify this, R mv sine 90 degrees, which is 1. So that is nothing but the magnitude is simply mvr. So what he gave is this angular momentum is integral multiple of m as n h bar, where h bar is called the reduced Planck constant, right? So only we can find those orbits which allow this this momentum, angular momentum formula. That is, angular momentum of an electron is integral multiple of the reduced Planck's constant, right? So from this, what you can do, you can mvr is equal to nh bar, right? So mvr is equal to nh bar. So you can find r, right? And you can substitute that in half mv square. Then you get the kinetic energy, right? Actually, you can find V, sorry. You can find V is equal to nh bar over mr. So once you substitute, you get this to be the kinetic energy, right? So, right, that is the kinetic energy in terms of radius of the orbit, right? And then what you can do is you have two expressions of kinetic energies now, kinetic energy. One is given by equation 6 and other is given by equation 3 in terms of radius, right? So once you equate those two, then you get a very, very nice formula. Actually, the very elegant formula, they have a very beautiful formula. That is number 7, right? So very interestingly, here only n is variable. N is the number of, that is quantum number, n equal to 1, 2, 3, like that. N equal to 1 is the ground state. N equal to 2 is the first excited state, and so on, right? And then the quantity here is constant. It is universal constant actually. For hydrogen atom, if you put G equal to 1, right, you get that plug the value of epsilon naught, which is 8.85 times 10 to the power minus 12, plug H bar and mass of electron and everything, electronic charge, then you will get 0.529 angstrom. Actually, that comes to be the like so when n equal to 1, z is equal to, for hydrogen atom, 1. So that is actually the radius of the ground state orbit, that is the lowest orbit of the in the hydrogen atom. Okay, so now you can, now the rest of the thing is not new physics, not new thing, just do some kind of manipulation, right? Just do some kind of manipulation down here, substitute the value of Rn in the total energy. By the way, now I have started writing Rn En subscript, which means energy of the nth orbit or nth level. Rn is the radius of the nth orbit, like that. So plug in the value of Rn, which we have gotten here in terms of energy, in the expression of energy, and then start simplifying, right? The rest is nothing but algebra. And one beautiful thing you get is this quantity. This quantity is defined as fine structure constant, which is a constant quantity given by this and denoted by alpha. Okay, you can find this quantity in the table of constants, and then plug that alpha back in here, and in terms of alpha you will get the total energy like this. For hydrogen atom, n equal to 1. So once you plug in there, and then you will get this very nice formula. That is the energy. That is the energy of the nth orbit of hydrogen atom. Okay. If you took physics 1130, you already did that. So for you, those who have already taken, will be a quick review. So what is the ground state energy of hydrogen atom? Substitute n equal to 1. Please don't put n equal to 0. Okay. And it starts 1. From 1, right? Once you do that, so the ground state energy level is this. So what is the energy for the first excited state? N equal to 2. So 2 square is 4, right? So divide 13.6 by 4, then you will get another number. What is the second excited state? 2 square is, so now you put 3 square, which is 9. So if you do that calculation and then draw energy level diagram, so you will get this very nice diagram. Let me show you. Yeah, this energy level diagram. Okay. So this is the energy level diagram of hydrogen atom. So this is the ground state, and this is the first excited state. So see how large is the difference? It's a very large difference compared to other higher state. So the first excited state, this is the first excited state. The second excited state is this, and this is the difference, right? And then if you continuously go on putting n equal to 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. So if you go to very, very high energy states, then energy levels are actually on top of each other. So that is what is called energy continuum. That is what is called energy continuum. Energy continuum. What does that mean? The energy levels are actually on top of each other. Okay. And if you go to very, very far away to infinity, right? So energy is 0. Does that make sense? Yes. What does that mean? That means that the electron is now free of the atom. So it goes to now, it leaves the atom, right? N equal to infinity. So En equal to minus 13.6 eV divided by infinity square, which is 0, right? So that means now the atom is said to be ionized. Okay. So in homework problem, maybe homework 3 or homework 4, so I have given some simulation, so you will understand better there. Okay. Now, so what our interest is, we would like to calculate the energy radiated, right? Because we want to see how light comes out or how energy comes out, right? So when an electron in the excited state jumps, like suppose this is excited state and this is the ground state. Let's say this is N1 state, this is N2 state. So it jumps from here, from excited state to ground state. So it emits energy in the form of photon, right? In the form of visible light or other kind of light. Okay. So that is this. The energy difference is given by this. So plug those, the value of 13.6 divided by n square for N1 and N2, and you will get that. And you can calculate energy from difference in frequency divide is equal to difference in energy by Planck constant, and you get that. And you can use wave equation. Then you can calculate the wavelength from here, equation 15. So very interestingly, let me tell you something. So if you consider N1 is equal to 1 and N2 equal to 2 and so on, N1 equal to 1 and N2 equal to 3, then what you do is you get series of wavelengths or series of radiations, and they have specific names calculated by different scientists. So the first series called Lyman series. The second series, which is in the visible range, is called Balmer series. The third series and higher series, they have other names like Paschen series, Humphreys series, and so on. So they have the names. What does that mean? I'm sorry. What does that mean? What does that mean? Let me show you in this picture. In this picture. So if any excited electron jumps from here to there, so that radiation falls in Lyman series, which we cannot see, right? Which we cannot see. And if any electron jumps from here to there or from higher state to there, so that comes in Balmer series. We can see that radiation that comes in the visible range. And other higher like Paschen, Brackett, and other series, Fond, right? Those series we cannot visualize. Okay, that means they don't come in visible range. Okay, so that is the part. So I'm stopping that part there. Right now, one other thing which we frequently use in astrophysics is radiative transfer. Right? Suppose we are observing stars, light coming from the stars. Okay, so what happens there? So light passes through the atmosphere. So some of the radiation is absorbed there, some of the radiation is transmitted there and comes to the Earth, some is reflected, right? So that is called the radiative transfer. So let's derive a very simple relation. Suppose we consider a certain thickness, delta X, let's say if we consider the atmosphere, let's say we consider small thickness, delta X, and then some radiation is with intensity I is coming here, right? Coming and hits this surface of thickness delta S, and this surface is S, and on the other side there is I plus delta I. And what we need to understand is, if there is no radiated light here, there is no source of radiation in this volume, what will happen is the outgoing intensity is less than incoming intensity. Some of them is absorbed there, that absorption, right? We would like to see that. There is one problem, homework problem based on this. This is very important concept. So what we can say that the transmitted, the energy absorbed, right, per unit intensity absorbed per unit initial intensity is given by sigma over S, where this sigma is a very important term called cross section, absorption cross section. And by the way, for example, if you consider a circular cross section, that is pi r square. But if you do quantum mechanical, suppose you have a sphere, so radiation is passing through that sphere. So that is not pi r square in quantum mechanics. That is a kind of different quantum mechanical expression, right? So don't worry too much on that. And S is the total surface, right? So what you can do is, suppose there are n particles in total, right, in the absorbing area, and surface area of that surface is S, I showed you, and thickness is delta X. The total number of absorbers is equal to N, capital N is equal to number of particles per unit volume times volume, right? That is the total number of particles, right? So when you use that expression in our original expression delta I over I, then you get this. And then now there is some kind of calculus here, simple calculus. So what you do is assume that thickness of that absorber is very, very small. Then you can write the language of calculus here, di over I is equal to minus n sigma dx, right? So this delta x now becomes dx in terms of calculus, right? So if you do, this is a simple differential equation, integrate both sides, right, using some boundary conditions, right? So once you do that, then you get this very beautiful equation of physics. I really like this equation. That is what does it tell you is the intensity at any point x is the initial intensity and exponential factor. That means the intensity decays exponentially with the distance. Okay, that makes sense, right? So this is what is the simplest equation of the radiative transfer. But life is not that simple, because there is not only one frequency, right? There are multiple frequencies, multiple kind of radiation. All right. So the formula becomes more complex. But